Yeah, I wanted to just get started. We lost a friend, a former player, somebody that's been with the program, since we first got here. Michael Harden passed away, this week, and man, he's been there since day one on that baseline, and I'm sure some of you famously remember Michael getting tossed out of a game by TV Teddy. Back in the day, I was actually watching the clip, and I actually realized that Chad Pruitt was actually like two seats down from him, and I had no idea the whole time. But no, Michael was just so consistent and always just there, and he's gonna be missed, man. He was just a fixture of Neville Arena, just being at every single game. I'm praying for Lori. I'm praying for Sydney, Savannah, and Max is a cross country runner here at Auburn. So, for anyone listening, just please keep that family in your prayers. Such great people, and he was such a big part, of our program and the success that we've had. So, just praying for them right now. I want to lift them up in prayer. Exciting week coming up. Big opportunity with Wofford tomorrow. A team that, when you first watched them in their George Mason game, you saw some holes. And, credit to Coach Giltner and his staff. They plugged a lot of those, going into the Milwaukee game. Milwaukee's a team that is picked to win the Horizon League. As many of you know, Horizon League is the league that BP came from when he was at Milwaukee, and had a lot of really good teams come out of that league. So to be picked to win it, speaks volumes. And Wofford just handled them the entire game. Was up 20 points for most of the second half and ended up winning by 10. And the Horizon League is a league that Oakland is picked to finish second in that league. Oakland was in a tie game with the number one ranked team in the country, Purdue, for 30 minutes of that ball game. So speaks to the strength of that conference, and for Wofford to be able to handle that team, caught my attention, and it caught our guys' attention. So we're gonna have our hands full with a team that's obviously hungry and excited about an opportunity to come to Neville Arena and play us. So. Got some pretty talented players on the roster. They actually had an injury in the game that I think opened up a lot of things for the rest of the team. Kamari Holmes is a guy that led him with 24 points. Brian Sumter is a freshman that had 21 and 11. So, and that's not even mentioning the guards that have obviously, that have a lot of talent on that group. So, a team like us that I think shoots it better than what their numbers say. They're only shooting it at 22% from three, but they're shooting 25 of them a game. So I think they're dangerous from that aspect. They're actually a pretty good offensive rebounding team. We're gonna have our hands full, and it's a team that's playing a little bit of confidence right now. So it's a great opportunity for us to learn and to grow. They do a lot of things offensively, not similar to Merrimack, but that are going to require some of the things that we have to work on that Merrimack challenges with. So, got to do a really good job in our communication and being together defensively for us to be able to guard their actions. And they're going to play hard. They're going to fly around. So we got to match that intensity.
Raise your hand with a question. Bill.
Yeah, Stephen, just talk about how's Murph, and then talk about what you saw with Beck taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, Murph is, progressing from his ankle injury. He will play in an emergency situation if we need him to in Wofford. But he's still coming back from that injury, so we don't want to rush it back. So as of right now, unless there's another injury or foul trouble, Murph, we're gonna try not to play Murph. But if we need him, obviously I think he'll be available. But we're gonna try and obviously continue to give Mac and Sebastian and Keyshawn Hall and Phillip the majority of the minutes at the 4 and 5. And Mac was really good in the Merrimack game. For Mac, it's going to be not every team is going to be 6, 7, and under at every position and play a zone. So I think Mac was a beneficiary of them playing in zone, and we had guys that caught it at the high post. But credit to Mac, he was in the right place. They threw it to the rim and he finished. He got a couple of nice block shots in the back line right there. So for him, it's, I talked about it last week. It's all about his confidence. If Mac can be confident, he can do a lot of good things. And, each week in practice, he just continues to work, continues to grind, continues to try and get better. And as the game continues to slow down for him, as he continues to grow in his confidence, he'll continue to be effective when he's out there.
Jason?
Steve, now early in the season, obviously lots of new players for you guys, new teams you're facing. How much is this? It's always important, I guess, in-game adjustments, but is it more important now early in seasons because you kind of go into these things a little bit, maybe not knowing what to expect sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, we as a staff have to do a good job of having a couple different plans. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. I don't know, but I think for us we got to be multiple defensively and have to have different packages that we can throw in there, because we're just not going to be able to do what we did last year, where we just are guarding guys one-on-one and forcing teams to take tough twos and make tough twos. We don't have that luxury this year, and we don't have the luxury of having two giants back there that can kind of clean things up around the rim when we do get beat. So we got to continue to make adjustments on both offensively and defensively. I thought offensively, we had a pretty extensive play call list for the zone, and in the second half I think we ran 3 different sets. So it's like stuff like that is stuff that we got to continue to do with the new group. You got to find things that are working throughout the game, and you can't be afraid to make those changes on the fly, to obviously give your team the best opportunity to be successful. So that's why you got to have a great staff to be able to lean on, and the coaches that have the scouts, have to have adjustments throughout the game that we can go to if something's not working, and then it's obviously on our guys to be able to make those decisions work.
Steven, Todd obviously still trying to find his shot, but how do you feel like he's done these first few games, running the offense, stepping into that PG1 role, and it seems to be doing well as a playmaker so far?
Yeah, I mean, Todd's obviously always had the ability in a playmaking capacity. For Todd, it's just he's having to work way too hard to get his shots off, and I think that's part of us not having all of our best actions in yet. And I think that's something that'll continue to grow as the season goes on. You can't put all your best stuff in at the very beginning of the year, or else everyone will have your entire playbook scouted. So I'm not worried about Todd. If you look at from the first 4 games, counting the 2 exhibitions, he's shooting 30%, and we've scored 95 plus in all 4 games. So if you told me before the year, we were going to play these 4 games, we were going to score 95 or more in every single one, and Todd be shooting 30%, I'd probably laugh at you, because I wouldn't think that would have been a possibility. So for me, if I'm going to take a positive away, because I do that all the time, me and all my positivity, that would be one, right? That if Todd's going to shoot 30% and we can score 95 points, that gives me some confidence in our offense that when he does get it going, that could be a very explosive part of this team and a big strength of this team.
Wofford was the team that you mentioned earlier, scored 46 in their first game, then they go 86 the next game. Just what did you see from them, especially on offense? Maybe some differences between them. They're a team also that had a big change right before the season and is having to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, I think in the second game, they did a good job, one, of just driving it more. And, Kamari Holmes was like, he's their 3-man in the first game. He was playing a lot of point guard for him in the second game and just handling it and bringing it up the floor. And he's a guy that can really just explosively get downhill and get to the rim. He got to the foul line, I think, 11 times in their most recent game against Milwaukee. So they did a better job of not settling for threes as much and really putting pressure on the defense and attacking downhill. Milwaukee didn't switch as much as George Mason did, so I think that was something that kind of played into their hands. And they just did a good job of defensively of creating some offense from their defense. I thought they did a pretty good job in the Milwaukee, getting out in transition and converting. And they did a good job of getting to the foul line and making their free throws. And like I said, they did a good job of getting second chance opportunities as well. So they're pretty multiple offensively as far as who can bring the ball up. There's Machowski, Holmes, Flynn, Watley, Vasco. Like, they have 4 or 5 guys that can just bring the ball up in transition, and it's really is positionless basketball. So they just did a better job of finding the guys that were obviously some of their better players. I thought Holmes and the freshman Sumter both played really well and gave them a huge spark in that game, and were able to be really effective. Sumter had he has 5 offensive rebounds in the year. I think he had 4 of them in that game, and I think 2 or 3 of them were tip dunks. So they just did a good job converting second chance points. really attacking Milwaukee off the bounce. I thought Milwaukee was really pressing to the ball, and they took advantage of that. So you just got to recognize personnel and who does what really well, and try and take those things away.
Jason.
Steve, you talked about Sebastian a lot already, but having a guy like that can do so many different things for a team, how valuable is that as you start to kind of grow into the season?
Yeah, I mean, as a freshman, 8 assists, 1 turnover, shooting 63% from the field, at 5.5 rebounds per game. Just, it's huge. And then for that to be a freshman is just insane. You don't find a lot of kids like that are just that well-rounded, offensively and defensively at his age. So, yeah, I was talking to Andy earlier. It's a lot like Isaac when he was a freshman. You know what I mean? Just like we were a lot older, which was the difference. But we had 6 seniors in Isaac. It wasn't 6 seniors in a freshman. It was 6 seniors in Isaac because we felt like Isaac was like another senior, right? And Sebastian's got a lot of that to him as well. Just mature beyond his years. And for Sebastian, I think what he does so well is he doesn't force it. He doesn't try and do too much. He understands what his strengths are, and he really goes at them. He doesn't try and do things he's not capable of doing. The good thing is he's capable of doing a lot of things, so it allows you to put him in different spots to obviously be successful and make plays. But yeah, I mean, you would love to have 3 or 4 guys like that on your team, but to have him with this group at such a young age is it's going to help us, and he's a guy that's going to be a big part of what we do.
Keyshawn's obviously getting the free throw line's been a big part of his career, but for a big guy like him, he's shooting over 90% right now from the line with all that volume. I mean, just how valuable is that for a guy that usually you don't get that kind of free throw shooting from your 4 or maybe even your 3s.
Yeah, I don't really consider him a big. He's a big guard. That's what he calls himself. But I'm not sure what his career percentage was, but I think it was in the high 70s or low 80s. So I mean, he's shown the ability to step up and make free throws at a high rate, and it's just it's great to know. And well, it's early, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But obviously, it's good that we have someone that can really put his head down, get to the rim, and draw contact like that. Because I feel like similar to Janai, he gets fouled every single play, right? And it's obviously good to have someone like that can shoot it right now at 90%. So. And then only have, with that much usage, he only has 4 turnovers too, right? So I think that is tremendously valuable because a lot of people with that high of a usage rate, that high of a shot percentage are going to have a higher turnover rate, and I think he's done a good job of limiting those turnovers. I think 3 of them were in the first game, or maybe all 4. I think all 4, yeah. So we had 1 assist, no turnovers in the last game. So for him to have that high usage, that low of a turnover percentage, and to get to the foul line, I think he's drawn 20 fouls in 2 games. So, Clark's obviously got to get him taken care of after games because he's, obviously getting beat up in there. But no, he's been great and shooting it at a high percentage from 3. So we just got to do a good job of continuing to put him in positions offensively to be successful. And for him, it's just continuing to grow on the defensive end. He can't let his man just straight line drive him as much, and he knows that, and he's the first to recognize it. And he's wanting to become a better defender, which is obviously going to help him get to that next level because offensively he's got all the tools.